Welcome to the Somatic Coaching Academy Podcast. I'm Ani Anderson.
And I'm Brian Trzaskos. Join us as we explore the science
and art of trauma-sensitive somatic practices and tools.
Strengthen your practice as a coach, therapist, or holistic professional.
Master the art of motivating even the most challenging clients when you understand how to tap into and unlock your client's complete holistic intelligence.
If you want to learn the most cutting-edge, research-supported skills for personal and professional mastery, you've come to the right place. Let's get this conversation started.
Hi, and welcome to the Somatic Coaching Academy Podcast. Good morning, Brian.
Good morning, Ani.
In a bad mood or something?
I'm having a no good, very bad, rotten, very bad day. There's that book that did that.
Book, that's such a good one. It's such a great book. Is that what we're talking about today?
Yes. No, I mean
no good rotten days.
We're talking about negativity today.
Okay. What episode are we on?
And how coaches can help their clients with negative thinking. Can you help me with my negative thinking?
Brian, you know I can't with this topic. Oh, I can't with this topic.
You can't with this topic?
No. Helping people to stop negative thinking?
Yeah.
No.
No?
I'm not participating in this topic.
Okay. So let's actually maybe set the framework. A couple of weeks ago, I came into the kitchen and I was thinking about this topic of negative thinking. And the reason I was thinking about this topic of negative thinking,
people talk about it all the time.
Because people were telling me they want to stop negative thinking. And I thought to myself, isn't that interesting? Because it was what cued me in. I was leading a workshop. And a lot of the workshop was around creating more empowered states based on our somatic intelligence, right? And as we did this empowered state, at the end of it, I did takeaways. And when a couple of people said, my empowered state is just push away all the negative thoughts.
Oh.
And I thought, okay. All right. So maybe we didn't totally nail what the process was about. And I kind of was like, okay, I'm just taking it as information. And so I brought it to you and I said, what do you think about this? What is it about negative thinking? And when we have negative thoughts, does it feel bad? And what did you say?
I like it. But it's true. Negative thoughts aren't always bad. We just want to eradicate negative, but there's a lot of empowerment in recognizing that you're having a thought or you have a feeling about something, and negative's not bad. I'm very passionate about this topic.
So when someone says they're having a negative thought, what are they even talking about? What is the actual thought is what I'm curious about.
Honestly, I think a lot of ladies talk about this in particular because there's this subconscious program that we're supposed to be good people. And if I was a good person, I wouldn't have bad thoughts or wouldn't have negative thoughts. I think there's that. There's also this thing, I just want to feel better. And I'm always thinking these negative thoughts that are a bummer, and I don't want to feel that. So if I could just get rid of the thoughts, then I would feel better. But I do think for women in particular, a lot of it comes from our conditioning around needing to be good and smile and pretend like everything's okay all the time.
Yeah. So is it safe to say then that some negative thoughts or can the same thought that someone is calling negative, because I think just the negative positive judgment we just have to kind of talk about anyway, right? So what makes it negative and what makes it positive to begin with?
It's a judgment call.
Yeah, that's what we've been taught that.
Right. I mean, is it a negative thought or is it a positive thought? Is it a judgment call? And the natural laws tell us that nothing is inherently right, wrong, good, bad, positive, or negative. Nothing is inherently negative.
So can a thought that we call negative sometimes feel different than other times?
I think so. I think different thoughts can feel different ways.
Can the same thought feel different ways? Is I guess what I'm asking.
I think the same thought can feel different ways.
Same thought can feel different ways.
Yeah.
And
sometimes I can feel bad about myself when I'm having that thought. Sometimes I can feel really empowered when I'm having that thought.
So my question then is if that's true, and sometimes you can feel bad about yourself when you're having that same thought, and sometimes you can feel empowered when you're having that same thought, is that is the does the thought change from negative to positive, or is it still a negative thought? You would just feel differently about it.
I just think we have to take the whole negative positive out of the whole equation. I think that's actually the problem.
Okay.
I think the judgment around whether it's negative or positive needs to leave the building.
Hmm.
Then we can have a conversation about what we're actually trying to talk about. When clients tell me that they have problems with negative thinking, I don't leap down their throats
Like you,
like I'm
like
doing
you're
to
doing
you
now.
right now.
Okay.
I ask them what they're trying to get at. And usually, what they're trying to get at is feeling better in their body,
Okay.
feeling better emotionally. They don't want to be, and then we hear, people have said that, and it's not that there's not any truth to this, that if I'm harboring anger all the time, I'm gonna get sick. So then they're scared. Like, if I don't fix this problem, I'm gonna get sick, you know? And it's really hard to deal with this, like, voice in our head all the time. And we just think if we could change that, we'd be fine.
Hmm. So as we are having this conversation in our kitchen a couple weeks ago, what occurred to me is that perhaps just kind of changing the semantics around this a little bit in terms of maybe it's not so much not wanting to have negative thoughts, but what we're really concerned about is when the thoughts feel distressing.
Right. That I can get on board with. That I can get on board with, and I think that there's, obviously stuff we can do about that. But having the idea around having distressing thoughts rather than negative or positive, I think we really have to change the language.
Yeah. So let's go back to coaching. So the today's topic of the podcast is how can we help? How can coaches help their clients to stop negative thinking or negative thoughts?
God, I just can't even hear
Well, but I
it.
bet you there's a lot of people listening to this who are saying, yes, I want to learn how to do that.
Yes.
And the very first thing we're bringing to you is the questioning your clients. Well, what makes that thought negative? What makes a different thought positive?
Right.
Just
Because
to kind of start to help someone understand how they're thinking about how they're thinking.
exactly how they're thinking about how they're thinking. Is there patterns at play here we want to know? Like, once people start to question how they're thinking, then they can start to see if there's patterns and what's deeper, like, where is this actually coming
Right?
from?
Yeah.
And then, of course, what are you trying to achieve? Like, why are you even asking this question? What are you trying to achieve? That illuminates so much awareness
Yeah.
for an individual.
Yeah. So, the reason that that first question, I think, for me is so important to help people understand how they're thinking about what they're thinking is not necessarily to change their thinking,
Yeah.
because we know that your subconscious mind tells your conscious mind how to think about things. So, if your subconscious mind wants your conscious mind to think a certain way about things, then no matter how you're doing coaching with your client, they're always going to think about it the way that their subconscious mind wants them to think about it.
Hmm.
When we used to work with a coach who, one of the things he would do that drove me nuts all the time is he would say something, and then he would say, "Now think about it. Think, think." And I'm thinking to myself, I'm trying to think, but I keep coming up with the same message again and again and again, how dysfunctional I am or how worthless I am. That I am thinking about it. That's what I'm thinking about. And he just kept saying, think,
It feels
think,
like banging your
think,
head against
think.
a
And it
wall.
really felt like he was just banging a book over my head.
Yeah.
And it really wasn't. And I really think that's because on some level, I was learning how to think about how I was thinking,
Right.
but I still couldn't change my thinking because thinking isn't only generated from what's going on in between our ears. Thinking is generated from our subconscious, which is our body.
Right. Right. Yeah. And, back to this negative thought. I mean, as I've been working with people, specifically women over the years, there can be negative thoughts that are coming from the place that there's some real injustices or empowerment that they haven't tapped into yet or uncovered yet. That when they do, they realize very well why they're having those thoughts and they make sense.
Yeah.
You know, one of the things we tell our clients and our students all the time is you make sense. You make sense. So, for example, when the person's saying think, and you're feeling like I am thinking, like there's probably patterns around that for you of like not being able to figure it out or not being able to move forward, or feeling stupid or something. That then you can say like, oh, this is why I'm feeling that way. I make sense.
Yeah.
Once we get to the place of saying I make sense and I'm already whole and I'm not broken and nothing needs to be fixed, all of a sudden that opens up a whole nother world of possibilities
Yeah.
for what we can experience.
Totally.
And thinking is just a really small aspect of our experience. It's just one aspect of our experience. There's so many other aspects of our experiences. I think that's another like if I just changed my negative thinking, that's another telltale sign that I'm a person who is very exclusively polarized around the thinking nature of my life, you know, and how much authority it has. Because there's so much more in an experience
Yeah.
than just the thoughts.
Yeah. And oftentimes even more powerful reservoirs of information than just the thoughts,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So that first step is to help clients reframe or look at the idea again of, or explore even like what makes a negative thought a negative thought. Like why is it negative or why is it? And that the sole idea of helping someone become aware of how they're thinking about how they're thinking.
Yeah.
And you said a few times that you've kind of gone back and forth between the words thinking and feeling a few
Yes.
times as you've gone back and forth.
Yes.
So,
I
right.
have.
So this is really interesting because when I said, is it more about the distressing thoughts? So distressing brings in a quality of a felt quality.
And I've watched myself go back and forth with this, but I think for those of you listening, check it out. When you have a negative thought, when you have a thought you don't like, is there some kind of felt quality around it?
Hmm.
And that's actually probably what you don't like,
Exactly.
is how it feels,
Right.
right?
Right.
I've made friends with a lot of my feelings, which is why I can say to you, well, first of all, I'm not as attached to the things that I'm thinking because I've made friends with a lot of
Yeah.
my feelings.
Hmm.
And also, you said something about the negative thoughts. I don't get all hung up about the negative thoughts or whatever. I'm way more interested in how I can modify my
Yep.
I'm going to say feelings, but what I really mean is my sensory base. Um, because that's where the power is.
Hmm.
So you're right. I have kind of gone back and forth here, but I'll bet you people who are saying, I wish I could eradicate my negative thinking are really trying to change how they feel about it.
Totally. Yeah. And that's why I highlight that you've gone, and I think you're going back and forth because you can't not.
Yeah.
Because we can never really separate our thinking from our feeling. And we work with a lot of people when we ask them some questions, some body referencing questions. They're like, I don't know, I just can't find it or I can't feel it. And a lot of us have just been taught, conditioned, trained, even traumatized from being able to feel what's going on in our bodies. Let's say that.
Yeah.
So as coaches, it's really important to know how to help people create more self-referencing, what we call interoceptive literacy before doing somatic coaching,
Yeah.
deeper somatic coaching.
Yeah.
And that's a part of the process that we teach people in our programs. But the idea is what they really don't like are the distressing sensations
Yes.
associated with the thoughts that they're calling negative,
Exactly.
right?
I'll tell you this too. I could give you like an example, but it's happened so many times. Usually, what a person is referencing when they have a negative thought and then they cue in with their body, and I'll ask them something like, what's behind that is a lot of grief.
Yeah.
That's actually what is behind the other thing that's on top of it. So they don't want to feel the grief. So there's another emotion on top of the grief that's protecting them from the grief. And that is stimulating these thoughts that happen to be labeled as negative. That's, by the way, our subconscious is throwing our awareness over to the thought. Oh, if you just fix that thought, the subconscious, meanwhile, is like, yeah, they're not going to fix the thought. No, they're not, because it's a deeper felt quality
Mhm.
state, right? The subconscious's job is to help us stay the same, and concentrating on fixing the negative thoughts is actually keeping us in a self-sabotage loop. It's
Mhm.
keeping us the same. We're not going to change, we're not going to fix it. Once we actually look at what's underneath of the feelings that we're trying not to feel, then we can actually create some change.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's kind of segue into that. I was recently having a conversation with one of the students in our year-long mastermind program, our private mastermind program. And they were asking me about this exact thing. I've got these thoughts and I'm really trying to change my thinking and those sorts of things. And I asked them, I said, well, let me ask you this question. So you're having certain thoughts, and you're feeling a certain way. And do you like how you feel when you're having those thoughts? He's like, no, I don't like how I feel when I'm having those thoughts. And I said, and what have you been trying to do? He said, I've been trying to change my thoughts so that I feel differently.
Right.
And I said, well, how's that working for you? And he said, well, not really, really well. I said, well, think about this. If you felt good, or let's say if you felt the way that you wanted to feel, I said, how do you want to feel? And he kind of gave me some examples of how he wanted to feel. I said, now, if you felt that way, and then you had that same thought, would you care about that thought as much? He's like, not at all.
Exactly.
I said, so it's interesting that if we feel empowered, all of our thoughts will either be detached from them because it might be a thought that we don't like, but we don't really buying into it because we feel empowered, or every thought's an empowered thought. And so what I tried to help him kind of understand is that so many people, and if like I could like just grab everybody by the shirt collar and say, hey, you who've been trying to change your thinking, how often do you try to change your thinking because you want to change how you feel, and it just is so difficult to do. You're trying to think differently. And so you think differently for 2 minutes, and then when you're not paying attention anymore, you start thinking about things you don't want to think about again because you feel not a way you want to feel. You feel distressed. There's some bit of distressing sensations, but we keep coming back to it. And we're like, we think that's the way. We've been told to change our thinking, and that changes everything. But that's very, very limiting. Where if you change how you're feeling, if you change from a distressing sensation to an empowering sensation, then whatever you thought you have is going to feel empowered.
Yeah. Yeah. We're trying to fix the wrong
We're
problem.
trying to fix the wrong end of the problem.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like cause and effect, right?
Mm,
Like, how do I actually cause and affect this thing? If you want to change the effect, which is the thoughts, change the cause, which is the feeling states, but also just if you want to feel differently, then change how you're feeling.
right, exactly. Change how you're feeling. And people are like, well, how do I do that? It seems easier to change how you're thinking.
It seems easier, I think, again,
It's
because of
actually
how
not.
we've been
Conditioned,
conditioned
right.
to think about ourselves ever since they said, I think, therefore I am. Who said that? Descartes?
Yeah.
I think, therefore I am. That was 400 years ago. It's over.
Doesn't work anymore.
Yeah, maybe it worked for him once. Like, but it's over, people.
Well, but you got to think, like, you have to
It's,
think about what happened at that time in history.
yeah,
It's like science got the mind and the religion got the everything
everything
else.
else. Yeah.
Science got the brain and everything else got the soul and our feelings and all that kind
We're
of stuff.
still operating from that place.
So the idea is here, gang, I mean, this is it. Like, how do you actually help your clients to stop negative thinking is actually to help them feel differently. That's how
Mhm.
you do it.
Yep.
That's the shortcut.
Yep.
Don't even focus on the negative thinking. Focus on the sensory base that is the reality for how they move through the world.
Yep.
And that will automatically change how they're thinking about things.
Right. And that's what we teach in our somatic transformations program. Body change,
Yep.
somatic transformations, change how you feel.
Right.
And the cool thing is, whatever a person wants to experience, by the way, is in them already.
Yes.
When we're trying to change that negative thought, we're actually not working at the level that we can create the change because we're not working with the sensations. Also, we're very likely looking in the wrong direction because we're looking at the negative thing rather than looking for what we want,
Hmm.
which sometimes people have a hard time articulating, by the way.
Yep.
They have a hard time articulating what they want. We were just working on this in office hours. We have a monthly community meeting. A lot of times we talk about business building. We talk about the content that we teach here at the Somatic Coaching Academy. All of the graduates of all of our programs are invited. So we were talking about identifying what you want yesterday, and we were helping people to do that because it can be challenging for
Hmm.
people. And then recognizing whatever it is you do want already exists within you.
Yes.
We have to find it,
Hmm.
you know?
Yeah, find it and then feed it and nourish it and nurture it
Which
so that
is
it can grow.
another reason why it's really important to let go of this positive, negative stuff, because it's a lot easier to find hope, peace, equanimity, whatever, empowerment, whatever are the words you want to use, that is like the state I want to experience. But if we're just going to go, well, I don't want to feel positive, I don't want to feel negative, I want to feel positive, we need more information
Yep.
than that. Like that's such a, it's such a simplistic and not helpful way to think about ourselves, to think about negative, positive. I mean, we're rich beings as human beings, and we have so many different opportunities to experience so many different things. What would I like to experience? Is it joy? Is it empowerment? Is it anger? Is it sadness? Like, what if we can even let go of the fact that nothing is good, bad, right, or wrong in terms of the felt quality feeling realm, and allow ourselves to kind of tap in with how we do feel so that we can get deeper and experience, the range, the full range of
Yeah.
being human.
It makes me think like that negative positive is very black and white.
It really is.
But all of the other empowered, strong, all the other sensations, that's the color palette, right? It's literally like bringing color into our
Yeah.
color and texture into our experience. It's like when television went from black and white to color, and everyone was like, "Woo!" and it felt more like kind of real life. It felt rich, and that's what bringing all these sensory components, this interoceptive literacy is. It's this deep context and deep richness of colors within us rather than just the black or white of good, bad, right, wrong, positive, negative.
Yeah. Yeah. It can be hard to be a human, you know? It can be hard to be a human. I have a client, we joke about this every single week about humaning. Woo,
Yeah.
it's rough.
Yeah.
And so let's give ourselves the opportunity to tap into the range of color that we have available to
Mhm.
us as humans so that we can experience all the richness of it. Because otherwise we just get really, really focused on, that negativity.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's so much more available to
Yeah.
us.
So go deeper than the level of just the negative thinking. Realize there's that whole environment and rich tapestry of sensation that lives within our experience. And when we learn to consciously shift that sensation, the thoughts they naturally change.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So.
Yep. And that's a lovely internal environment to live in.
Yep. So if this was an interesting episode to you and whatever you learned, please comment below. Check out the website. Look at our Somatic Transformation Fundamentals program if that's something that really tapped into or really interested in. And look forward to being back with you again next week.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to this episode. We hope that this conversation will help you improve your practice and change the way you think about your work, your clients, and yourself.
Continue your exploration of trauma-sensitive somatic coaching by listening to more podcast episodes at somaticcoachingacademy.com. You could be the trusted guide that people turn to help them with their most challenging situations and to reach their most precious goals. Thank you for joining us.
We'll see you next time.